There is a specific point in some games where the session stops being the thing you wanted and starts being the thing the game needs. The factory is running, the trade routes are established. You can't stop now. The question is whether the game earned that feeling or has it manufactured it. Some games don't earn their sessions in the first hour. They earn them in the 30th. The entry cost is real, and so is what you find on the other side of it. Elite Dangerous, Anno 1800, EVE Online. 3 games that ask something significant before they give anything back. The question this video is answering is not whether to trust them. It is specifically what they are asking and whether that is something you can say yes to right now. These are not games for every point in life, but for the right period, with honest expectations going in. They give back something the easy entry games cannot. Sessions that cost something and return it with interest. Every game in this category has an entry cost. Not just the price, but the investment of time and attention required before the game becomes what it was described as. That cost is not the same as a chore opening. A chore opening wastes your time before the good part begins. An entry cost earns something specific, a skill level or a position in the game's world, a starting point from which sessions become possible. The distinction matters because the entry cost is often where people leave. They mistake the price of admission for the wrong fit. And sometimes it is, but sometimes the game on the other side of that entry cost is exactly what they came for. Elite Dangerous is the clearest example of an entry cost that is exactly worth what it asks. Elite Dangerous is a space simulation. You pilot a spacecraft through a one-to-one scale model of the Milky Way, hundreds of billions of star systems, all of them accessible. If you grew up on PC space sims, the old fantasy of a living galaxy you could lose yourself in, this is where that lineage went. The game asks you to trade, explore, mine, fight, or some combination of all of them. It does not tell you which. It puts you in a ship, gives you a brief tutorial, and opens the galaxy. The entry cost is therefore real and worth naming honestly. The first several hours are disorienting. The controls are complex. The economy takes some learning, and docking requires a specific set of skills that takes time to develop and is unforgiving if you rush it. Buying an autopilot first was, for me, not optional. The game rewards patience and punishes carelessness. Before it becomes what it actually is, it demands that you take it seriously. But once established, once you have a ship you understand, a home station, a loop you have learned, the session structure becomes manageable. A trade run takes 45 minutes. A combat mission takes 30 to 60. The game holds your position cleanly between sessions. Coming back after a week means picking up exactly where you left off, at the station you were last docked at, with the ship you had fitted. The honest session assessment, this is not a Tired Tuesday game, especially not in the early stages. The controls require attention, and the penalty for distraction is real. Once you're established, and the mechanics are ingrained, sessions at the casual end become possible, but they take time to earn. The right question before you commit? Are you prepared to give it 20 to 30 hours before you decide whether it is for you? The players who leave before that point almost always leave too soon. If you're the kind of player who wants what Elite is offering, 20 to 30 hours is often where it starts to make sense. Now, Anno 1800 makes a different kind of ask. Not depth of skill, but duration of patience. The entry cost is almost nothing. What it does cost comes later. Anno 1800 is a city builder and economic simulation set in the Industrial Revolution. You build supply chains, manage populations with increasingly complex needs, establish trade routes between islands, and expand into a world that keeps asking for more. If you remember the pull of Transport Tycoon, Caesar, or the Settlers series, the specific satisfaction of watching a supply chain click into place, then Anno 1800 is the modern descendant of that itch. The early game is one of the best designed openings in this category. The first island is clear. You need housing, food, a few basic goods. The feedback loop is immediate. Build, expand, watch the population grow. Each new tier of citizen have needs, and these introduce exactly enough complexity to feel like progression without being overwhelming. The honest truth about Anno is that this is where the session assessment changes. In the early game, sessions are absorbing and easy to put down. You finish building a neighborhood, population's needs are met, and the game has a natural pause. As the city grows, that balance shifts. More systems need attention. Sessions start needing to be longer to feel meaningful, and the complexity stops arriving in layers you can absorb and starts arriving as maintenance. This is the game's late game weight. The point where you have built something impressive and the cost of keeping it running starts to outweigh the pleasure of expanding it. The approach that works? Treat each island as a self-contained project. Build it to a stable state, establish its trade routes, and then start the next one. The game handles this well. Each new island is almost a fresh start with inherited advantages. If you feel a session becoming maintenance rather than building, that is the game telling you to move to the next island, not to keep going. Anno 1800 earns its entry cost in the first 3 sessions. The question is not whether to start, it is knowing when the game is shifted from something you are building into something you are maintaining. Go in expecting that shift, and the sessions before it are some of the best the genre has. Now, the third game in this category is a different proposition entirely. Not an entry cost question, but a compatibility question. EVE Online has sustained a player-driven war economy for well over 20 years. It is also, for most people watching this, not compatible with a session-led gaming life. And that is no criticism of the game, it is simply what it is. EVE Online is a massively multiplayer game built around player-driven economies, alliances, and conflicts. If what attracts you is the corporate-scale version of EVE, with the grand political campaigns, the alliance warfare, and the living market, the sessions required to participate meaningfully are long, sometimes unpredictable, and can't always be paused at the moment you need them to. The game will generate situations that sometimes demand your presence at the wrong time. But none of this makes it a bad game. It is one of the most impressive player-driven games ever built. The scale, the political history, the weight of consequences in what happens there. EVE is in this video not as a recommendation, but as the most honest illustration of what the wrong time looks like at its most extreme. A game so demanding of consistent presence that the compatibility question matters more than the entry cost question. EVE Online is definitely worth knowing about, worth reading about, worth watching. It is one of the most remarkable player-driven worlds ever built. It is just not one to force into a session windows it was not designed for. When the time is right, it'll still be there. The games in this category share one characteristic. They earn their sessions after you've paid the entry cost, not before. The investment is real, but so is the payoff. The question before any of them is not, is this game good? It is whether this is the right time for this particular investment. If the answer is yes, these games give back something that almost nothing else does. Elite Dangerous if you can give it the entry cost to want a galaxy to get lost in. Anno 1800 if you want the satisfaction of a system clicking into place, and you can recognize the moment to stop building before it becomes maintenance. EVE, when the time is right. Get the timing right and the entry cost disappears into the sessions. Get it wrong and it's all you remember.